phone down or. All right, well, thank you all for joining tonight. Welcome. We have a good event scheduled. And again, please mute your mics if you've not already done so. I'm going to turn it over to Sherry to introduce our speaker tonight.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. And okay, go Dodgers. So tonight we have Dr. Ann Wagner and her husband, Eric. And we've had them on before, and it was a really popular event, so we invited them back. The topic tonight, as most of you know or should know, is, navigating the holidays. When you have visual impairment or blindness, I think it affects everybody a little differently, and we're definitely curious, what the doctor has to tell us. Anne has worked for 26 plus years as a board certified clinical psychologist. She has delivered numerous presentations all over the world, really, including for Foundation Fighting Blindness, about complex grief, anxiety, depression, resiliency, which is great because we don't want to always make it a downer, and really how to navigate vision loss. It's really our pleasure to have her back. And Doctor, I'd like to turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you again. Thank you so much. I feel honored to be asked. And as you know, this is my husband, Eric, and he's here to help kind of as my sighted helper, but he'll also be sharing from time to time from the role of like the sighted helper and experiences related to holiday stress that might be specifically related to the role of helping, well, me as a partner. So we know that, so I just want to start off by talking about holidays, and regardless of people's different cultures, different religious groups have their own practices and ideas of special times throughout the year. And there's so many attached meanings, and there's practices that go along with those special times. There's ideas and there's things that individual people may or may not actually even approve of. And we'll start off with a story Eric just told about somebody he knew. What was it you told me about the lutefisk?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if this is common ground in California, but here in Minnesota, it's common knowledge that people of Scandinavian and especially Norwegian extraction enjoy lutefisk around the holidays. It's a terrible kind of fish that's really more gel than it is fish, and it's kind of gross. And in this story that I'm relating, I heard an older person talking about his holiday tradition of eating lutefisk on Christmas Eve every year, no matter what. We always eat lutefisk on Christmas Eve. And this young person, this boy really, who'd never had it, said, does that mean it's good? And the older person says, oh no, it's terrible. God, it's just awful. And the boy says, well, why do you eat it? And he says, because my parents ate it. And when I eat it, it reminds me of those times and of them.
So we may not individually approve of certain practices, and yet there's meaning attached to it. And we sometimes even sacrifice, which is sort of a stress. There's so many different things. It's complicated emotions, but stress can be elicited for all sorts of reasons. And yet we have our own personal agency where we get to decide what's worth it for us. What kind of stress is worth it for us based on the meanings attached to those kinds of things. So we know there's lots of complex emotions attached to the holidays. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but a typical person makes 35,000 decisions every day. And there is such a thing as decision fatigue, which is why we often get more tired in the afternoon and evenings. And for people with vision loss, we still, it averages out to one decision every 2 seconds. And that's still the same for those of us living with vision loss. But the nature of the decisions we have to make are often about our own safety, planning ahead to prepare, learning the blind skills so that we can be independent and live our quality of life the way other people who don't have to have those extra concerns. So there's also a bit of grief and loss with how much time we have to spend just to do the day-to-day things and learning those new skills. So there's all those additional factors that you're well aware of. And the sighted helpers, the time, if they value being there for us and helping when we need somebody with vision, then that's an extra layer. So when you bring in the holidays where routines are disrupted because maybe kids are home from school, or you're off work, which provided some structure and routine, and now it's disrupted because you're not at work, you're at home, and there's all these extra expectations of visiting the relatives or preparing the traditional meals or whatever those things are. It's extra, it's out of routine, and that taxes our decision-making energies a bit even more, because routines, we're still making decisions, but they're more implicit. They're not in the forefront. They're not taking as much energy. So just, it's important to validate that if it feels extra stressful, it is. And these days, especially with rising cost of living, and groceries are higher, so maybe there's a certain dish you value making for your family holidays, and the budget isn't increasing any, to keep up with the groceries. So things are tighter, and then decisions have to be made at what do you cut back on in order to make the dish you want, or all those
So
things
this year,
stressful.
we can do without the lutefisk this year.
Yeah, well, we've never had lutefisk.
Well, actually we did. I don't know if you're forgetting, but there was one time early in our relationship, and maybe I'm talking from a perspective of a sighted helper who's also in a primary relationship. And I don't know what percentage of sighted helpers are also boyfriends or girlfriends or husbands or wives. But in our case, because we do everything together, we don't have the option that other couples have of going our separate ways. One go off to your family and do their traditions, and the other go off to yours. We have to adapt to each other's holiday traditions. And one time, I got Anne to go with me to a lutefisk feed, and another friend who'd never had it. And it really was I've had it many times, but this was the most disgusting I've ever seen it. And at the end of it, I told Anne, sweetheart, you never have to do this again.
I like the Swedish meatballs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a good sport. I try to find an adventure in just about everything. But yeah, I'm grateful to not have to do that again. And there's something about when I get together with my family, because I don't know if you remember, but I have autosomal dominant retinitis pigmentosa. So my mom was blind due to RP. And of her 5 children, 4 of us inherited the RP. So I had cousins and a couple of uncles and my grandpa. I grew up in a blind culture with people who understood what I was experiencing, and the sighted relatives kind of knew what we needed. It was just a wonderful way to grow up. So our family gatherings for the holidays, we have our kind of rituals or our ways of coping. Most of us with vision loss would kind of sit down, and those who are sighted would get the plates, or we'd stand in line behind as they put things on our plates. But as a sighted helper new in our relationship, Eric, what was that like the first time you came to our family?
It's a little stressful when you've got to be the one to go into the kitchen with all these people you don't know very well, carrying 2 plates or just one at a time.
Got the job. He made a lot of changes, but not to the best side of the wall. It's interesting because Patrick Graham has that New England Patriots Bill Belichick.
Are you hearing this?
Everybody, can you please mute?
Yeah, the host has to
Please.
really take control and just mute when we see. That's
Yeah, yeah.
And
So, and just to set the context, my parents lived at this point in a double wide trailer house. We were not a wealthy family. And so we had a lot of relatives in this kind of small space. And I chose to just sit and let Eric.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
dating and
it's not a comfortable way to meet the future in-laws. But you know, to go and queue up around the kitchen table with your plates and try to get everything that Anne asked for, you know, and she's very clear about what she wants. She'll say, "Well, I'd like some of everything, and be sure you get some of, you know, the potatoes." And so I'm going through trying to fulfill this order while there's all these other people trying to fill these other plates for their for whoever their primary responsibility was for. It's just awkward as heck.
and I want to talk about the emotions because that's how we cope with the emotions and some of the principles that are really important. And I know I reviewed them last time, but I think they're just so important, is that emotions only show up to tell us what we care about. And stress, that's kind of a general term, but it's showing up to tell you that something matters to you, that you care about something. So in this example, the family gathering, it's a lot of chaos, but of course I love it because it was my family. And Eric, who I was falling in love with, we're dating. I'm wanting him to get to know the fun chaos of my family and the laughter. But he felt awkward. And I just want to note that awkward is it's a language thing. And another principle is that there's no truth in any judgment, even though our minds have all been hacked. We've all been programmed to have more judgmental thoughts and ideas than we've ever been taught to how to just be with our lived experience and describe it from that core truth level. So at the level of our values and what matters to us. So if we separate out the awkward and we were just to ask you what the core emotion might have been as you were navigating getting my plate, what would you name the core emotion?
Well, in my book, awkward is an emotion, but okay. I guess I felt not exactly helpless, but clumsy. Is that any better than awkward? I felt out of place. I felt like I didn't belong, like I had to earn my belonging. I felt a little,
So
yeah.
fear of not being accepted.
Sure. Well, yeah, and of course I wanted everyone there to like me and think that I was smart, handsome, funny, you know, successful.
The core under all that is a fear and a fear of being judged. And for many of us, we have deep-seated things from childhood, even of messages from society for whatever differences we had of the fear of being judged is not good enough, of being accepted or cared about. And we have core needs for belongingness, to feel cared about, to feel understood, and to feel that level of security. So we come into any situation with expectations and ideas and hopes and dreams. Of course, our minds are filled with all of those things, but there's our core yearnings for acceptance. So the fear, if it may not have been huge fear, but some fear of what if this, in the what ifs, you know, what if this doesn't go well? What if they don't like me? Da, da, da. And if we were to ask, if emotions show up to tell us what we care about, what do you think the fear was telling you about what you cared about?
Well, I cared about being well launched in my relationship with you.
Because you care about
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we get to that core value, then there's a way we can center with that when we can invite in our emotions, regardless of the specific situation and the context. The stress, what is it telling us about what we care about? And when we get to the level of the values, there are always ways we can center and kind of have compassion with ourselves and a recognition that in this moment, we only have control over one thing anyway. We are helpless to control anything else except what we choose to say or do in this one moment right now. That's it. And so a centering with, how do I want to show up in this moment? What's most important to me? And maybe it's not about spending a lot of money on presents or gifts if it's outside of our budget. Maybe it's a balancing the dilemmas of the pressures to keep up traditions that may no longer be possible for all sorts of reasons versus showing up with the core tradition of being loving in relationships with others and expressing that love in some way and knowing it is more than enough. In fact, it's probably more needed today than anything else. But when Shauna invited me to speak with you, she said there a lot of people struggle with loneliness around the holidays, and we know that people with vision loss, mobility, or if you're alone with vision loss, it's much higher risk for depression and anxiety. And those are real issues. And of course, I'm a fierce advocate of seeking mental health care because it's wonderful. It helped me in my journey, and it's helped many people that I know. But the loneliness, if we think about how emotions show up to tell us what we care about, loneliness is a core healthy emotion, and it's telling us that we value relationships. It's telling you something about your core that you are built for relationships, even if we currently in the moment, our current reality, we've lost people perhaps, so there's grief and loss, or there just aren't the supportive close others in our lives. Maybe they've moved away, maybe people have drifted away, and right now maybe we don't have people to spend the holidays with. And it feels like yet another kind of barrier to belongingness. And we need that to feel we're social creatures. We need a certain level of belongingness to optimize our own health and well-being. So to be able to validate that loneliness, that it is telling you something, it's truth, it's a truth. And we can have compassion for the loneliness, like we can comfort it. To say, of course, it's showing up. If we don't have adequate social supports, it's simply telling you who you are, that you're built for relationships. You are built for being a dear friend. Life just hasn't cooperated that in this moment that we have that access. And unfortunately, holidays, again, those annual times of the year where there's so many messages out there of the ideal, which is family and friends being together and being happy, this kind of almost for some people, it can feel like a myth. It's a fantasy that's from this movies, versus
Just-
reality. Yeah. And so it heightens that feeling of loneliness because our minds not only have been hacked to have more judgmental thoughts, the shoulds, the should nots. By the way, the most toxic word in our English language is should. Things should be different than what they are. We're negating the reality of what is when we get caught up in those the languaging of judgments. But they distance us from our own truths and from other people. And yet they're going to keep chattering at us. So all we can learn to do is to observe what the mind chatters and then try to discern what feels like a truth of our own lived experience, to describe that experience, and to seek out what feels healthy or healing for ourselves. So helplessness is a really important emotion that shows up to tell us two truths. The first is that we have only control over what we say or do in this one moment. We cannot control what other people say, do, feel, or believe. We cannot control the past or the future. We only have control over this one thing right now, what we choose to do. And it tells us a second truth, and that's that we care about something. Otherwise, it doesn't show up. So if we think about helplessness almost like being a dear friend that's always trying to tell you the truth of the limits of your control and affirms that you care about something at that core level, it can help us not struggle so much with helplessness Because the more we struggle with it, that's when we're probably engaging in, we're trying to control things we can't control, or we're trying to avoid our own painful emotions as if we can control them and we really can't. We may think we are by suppressing or distracting or intellectualizing. We have all these protective patterns we've often been taught or we've learned to survive when we don't feel secure to share our core emotions with another person, because society hasn't really helped us learn how to be deep listeners with each other and to offer what's really needed for that healing, deeper connectedness, which is where if I feel I want to share something painful, an emotion, a story, or even something joyful, just sharing it with another person and trusting that they're not going to come back with a judgment, like, well, you shouldn't feel what you feel, or advice that I haven't asked for. Because when that happens, then the experience of the speaker is that the listener was more attached to their own ideas of the advice than really being with the speaker and hearing and validating their emotions. So often what's most healing and to help us feel that deeper sense of belongingness and connectedness is when we feel like somebody has really tried to understand our experiences and somehow indicates that they care about us and that our emotions matter. And that's just the beautiful part of belongingness and how it can help. Having emotional support. There's a theory from the 1980s, maybe 1970s, called the social buffering theory, that holds that when we have enough emotional support, it buffers the negative effects of stress in our life, even trauma level stressors in our life, if we have the emotional support. And we get to say what feels supportive to us, and different people, maybe they want advice, they want strategies or skills for how to cope, or they want resources kind of advice. Maybe that is what they feel is the most supportive. But for a lot of people that dealing with deeper core emotional pain or loneliness, feeling like there's somebody out there who cares, and is listening, is what's going to feel where we're getting that belongingness and emotional support needs met. So the social buffering theory also holds that day-to-day stressors, even if they don't seem all that huge or big, if we don't have emotional support, even for just the day-to-day, those can have a significant negative effect on us if we don't have emotional support. So it's really important. So if somebody used to have people in their lives who provided that, and as we age, as we know, we've lost friends the older we get, suddenly we can be really bereft, and there can be a lot of bereavement, and the holidays often bring up memories of past relationships maybe that we've lost, and grief can feel more kind of raw and stronger. And sometimes, like, you know, both of my parents and all my grandparents have passed away, and the grief of missing them shows up around the holidays stronger. But because I know grief shows up to tell us what we care about, and it's simply telling me how much I love them, I actually feel closer to them when it feels more raw. And I've come to actually kind of cherish that. Not that I try to dwell in it or linger in it. I don't try to avoid it. I've learned to kind of just kind of welcome it when it shows up. So there can be a lot of things about the holidays that we absolutely have no control over. So again, the helplessness is going to be there. So being able to validate that emotion and know it's trying to tell you that you care about these things that you can't control. And yet, in spite of that, you do get to choose what matters most to you. And I've encouraged a lot of people over the years working at the VA of helping veterans just kind of center with what's the most important thing in the holiday season when they're feeling all these the stressors. for financial concerns, all these things, the dilemmas that show up. Because every time we make a choice to act on one value, there may be many others we're not acting on because we can only do one thing at a time in the moment. And it's rare to find a win-win. You know, if we're lucky, we can find a win-win that where we act on multiple values at the same time. So being able to stand with dignity that the choice I made, I stand for that choice. And I'm still going to probably feel the emotions about the ones I didn't get to act on. So validating all of those almost like emotional hurts and pains sometimes at the ones we couldn't act on. But I'm a fierce advocate to not judge our younger selves, even from one day ago or an hour ago, let alone from years past, because our younger selves know exactly all the things that are weighing on their shoulders and how they're trying to survive. And it's really easy, even an hour later, to disconnect and to lose touch with everything we were experiencing in the moment we made a choice. And we don't ever want to put our judgments at the feet of our younger selves. We want to relate with compassion. And yes, feeling regret is a natural human emotion that tells us we have a capacity. So emotions show up to tell us what we care about. So if there's regret related to past memories, regret simply tells us that we have capacity to learn and to grow from our experience, and that is part of our integrity. So we can listen to it and discern without judging the choices of our younger selves. We can discern, how would I want to grow or make a different choice if similar circumstances happen in the future? So humor obviously helps a lot. And I was blessed that my mom loved to laugh, even in the moments of some holiday things that would happen that other people might have been fused with feeling embarrassed, which is a manufactured emotion. We're not born with that. It comes only from judgments that somehow I shouldn't have done that, or, you know, I should be ashamed, or da-da. All of those are manufactured from, and they come only from language. So
They also come from giving a gift that the person you gave it to didn't like.
yeah,
I mean,
well,
embarrassment. I mean, that's where a lot of my holiday stress would come from, would be the stress of trying to buy you the exact right gift, that would blow or failing that, to get you 10 gifts, hoping that together they would be the exact right gift, that would blow you away.
we used to spend a lot of energy, and I would
I
have
really
to,
stressed out.
oh my gosh, and because I was trying to have things be secret, and he was the one who would take me shopping, I'd enlist all these other little Santa's helpers in my life to help find the gifts for him. But we finally realized it was too much stress, and several years ago we just made a vow, no more gifts exchanges. And it's been such a relief to not have to worry about gifts for either of us. So I just want to share this one story about my mom. I hope it's okay, but she had made a huge thing of potatoes for mashed potatoes, and it was usually my brother Pete who would be mashing them, and he's also blind. And my sister-in-law Heather was nearby, and Pete was saying, boy, I think some of these potatoes got burnt on the bottom because it's just the masher isn't going all the way down. And Heather came over and she goes, oh, Grace, which is my mom's name. I don't think you know this, but the pot holder had fallen in the pot. And so the whole thing of potatoes had been boiled with a pot holder at the bottom. And my mom just burst into laughter. And we all agreed, oh, they probably taste fine. And they did, Heather just helped pull out the pot holder that had fallen in the bottom. And that became the story of, remember that year where we had the pot holder mashed potatoes. but I cherish those memories. And my mom, again, if she had fused with judgments of, oh my gosh, I wasn't using my blind skills to feel the pot, or I should have done this or that, it would have been a different experience. But that wasn't my mom. She somehow just knew how not to buy into societal judgments, and she was just with her experience every day. And I love that about her. So I have a list of ideas of things I wanted to talk about today, and I'm just gonna have Eric peruse them and remind me of some of the others. We've got this worked out, so bear with us.
Well, you were going to talk about your personal centering practice.
Yeah. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, and again, holiday stress, all the things on our plates as we try to just live life in a dominantly sighted world, it's heightened emotions. It's really easy to get more overwhelmed. And so during those times, it's helpful, I think, to have a centering practice that helps us connect to that core that knows what's healthy and healing for you, and to have in mind what are some of the things you like most about yourself, or that help you just feel like you're connecting to your integrity or your innate kindness, whatever those things are. And so for me, when I'm really feeling, especially when I'm struggling with old judgmental thoughts that I had internalized, in my history of feeling like I wasn't good enough or inferior, which are very common, by the way, self-doubts that people have internalized. I'm not feeling like you're good enough. My centering is, well, at least my dog Bandit loves me. That's my centering thing. Like, no matter what.
Excuse me.
Yeah. And then my next one would be, because I'm spiritual and I believe in a creator. I don't know, whatever the name is, a creator, like, or God, like God loves me no matter what. And then of course,
Somewhere along,
it's
sooner or later, she'll get to me.
Yeah, and Eric loves me. Yes.
Yeah.
But before you entered my life, it was Bandit, God. Yeah. But anyway, so just and see how my centering involves relationship with some entity or someone that I know offers unconditional acceptance, because we need acceptance. So that's my centering strategy. But there are so many others, just even a mantra of a like I think like Zen or Buddhist practices, even just the Om, the vibrations do something kind of helpful in the brain. I don't have the science down about that, but it can be helpful. It helps us get into the moment mindfully, because we just made a choice to do something that's intended to be self-care for us. It's showing that we care about ourselves, whatever it is. By making that decision for ourselves, it eases something in us that's saying, I know I matter to myself, regardless of anything else. So whether it's a mantra, whether it's a phrase, whether it's an image from the past that you can picture, like I could also easily picture being a young girl curling up on my mom's lap as she listened to me. She was an excellent listener, as I told her a story of something that had hurt my feelings. And she would just hold me until I was done telling the story. And then she'd ask if basically she'd say, do you feel like you got what you needed? And I'd say, yeah, and I'd go off and do my chores. So whatever the image, whatever the mantra, whether it's music, whatever centers you, that you get to be kind to yourself. And these are, I'm sort of giving advice, even though I wasn't entirely sure if I was being asked to give the advice. I would love it if I could just listen and be with people who need that. But I was asked to present, so I'm giving ideas. I'm sharing ideas. So the principles of dealing with stress and heightened emotions, complex emotions, dilemmas, where we're going to feel pulled to act in different ways. And we can only make one choice. The idea of validating emotions, that they show up to tell us what we care about. The idea of seeking where we can some sort of belongingness, or even memories. If there's no one in our lives currently who can provide that, holding on to the memories of those in the past who did, and that we do matter and our emotions matter. And any planning ahead for, are there any opportunities that could be sought out to forge even one friendship or acquaintanceship, or somebody that where you feel known, and that somebody can listen to your story. Now, the beauty about your chapter and the Foundation Fighting Blindness in general is the 48 states have chapters. I've heard so many times how people feel like a lot of those social emotional needs are being met just by the chapter membership and getting to know each other. And I just think that's so beautiful. And when I first started going to the chapter meetings here in Minnesota, I'd been missing the feel of my family as a unit, and I'm like, whoa, this community here in FFB feels like my family. I feel like it's people who understand what I'm going through. And there's wonderful people. So I don't know if your chapter can help assess or reach out to those who might not have other people to connect with right around Thanksgiving or whatever the holiday season's being practiced, but that would be lovely. Or other organizations, like whether it's religious organizations, often have programs or ideas for how to help people who've maybe lost a lot of the people in their lives and might be struggling with, again, with that heightened loneliness. Just so you know, and I don't know if you've heard a lot of the news programs since the pandemic, especially, but loneliness is an absolute epidemic, and it is associated with increased rates of anxiety and depression across the board. And we already know that people with vision loss are at heightened risk for anxiety and depression. And the stigma about mental health is going way down. We start to realize it's just artifacts of being a human and being alive. And there's, hopefully people are realizing there's no shame to this, and that seeking therapy is seen more and more and more as healthy. And like, why wouldn't people seek it? That's what I hear more often than not. Why wouldn't we? It's a way to take care of ourselves, and it's an act that shows, again, that we care about our well-being. So, and if there's nobody else in somebody's life, having that dedicated therapist or counselor who is there for you, who, if they're any good, they actually will care about you personally as well as professionally. Hopefully they can be there for you. So, other ideas that I had listed?
Something about the grief of adapting to different traditions when you need to do something different.
Right. So if your budget simply can't support buying all the ingredients for like the traditional dish that you would bring to represent, your family at a family gathering, there's going to be grief that you might have to pivot away from some things that just aren't possible anymore. Or because of the vision loss, there's some activity that there is no way to problem solve around, and you just can't engage in it the way you used to. That's grief and loss, as we know, related to vision loss, when we have to adjust and adapt and open to maybe new ways of doing things. So just validating the grief is real, and opening up to the spirit of the new can still be meaningful. It just may be different.
It was hard for me when my father, toward the end of his life, developed pretty bad macular degeneration. And one of the things that affected his holiday observances was that he no longer could navigate around a tree. He found having a big tree was too much of an obstacle and too difficult to deal with. So he started year by year reducing the size of the tree He went from a big white pine to eventually to a little Charlie Brown kind of a tree, and from there a little ceramic tree that sat on the table. And it gave me, I think more than it did him, it gave me a sense of grief for what we'd lost. I was no longer living with him, but even just visiting him and his new wife, just seeing this shrunken memory of this shrunken representation of what used to be such a big and vibrant holiday celebration in my life was difficult for me to absorb.
Yeah. So, the another idea that I use professionally, but also personally, of the principle of externalization, which is this idea that problems are not us. We can externalize them as separate from us, and then we can kind of take a position, we can look at them. So stress, holiday stress might be externalized. We might give it our own personal name. I'm trying to think of a cute name. But whatever. I'm not feeling very creative right now, but there's always parts to every problem or experience. So when we externalize it, we can look at what are the practices of whatever the problem is. So if we're feeling really overwhelmed or stressed, what are the practices, meaning what are the pushes or pulls to do something, what actions, or to not do certain actions. Those are the practices. And then there's the ideas around it. What are the thoughts? What are the beliefs? What are the ideas related to that problem? And then people. Are there certain people that inadvertently are reinforcing what we view as the problem or is kind of supporting it? Or are there people who might be witnesses to the preferred, who support our preferred truths and values? So people, practices, and ideas for the preferred are valued actions. We also have people who support. We have ideas that are connected to our values, and there's certainly ideas for actions, the practices. What would we do if we were living it, our preferred values? So being able to externalize those things helps us not take on identities that really aren't us anyway. They're these other things or problems. So when we spoke before, when I spoke to you in May, we had talked about externalizing, naming the dilemmas that can occur in relationship between a sighted helper and a person with vision loss. Those dilemmas of help being offered that wasn't asked for, or when I'm asking for help from Eric when he's busy. And so we have a dilemma, does he drop everything and help me, or does he ask me to wait? Or if he's offered me help that I haven't asked for, do I accept the help because I know it's how he's built and he absolutely, wants to help and I don't want to crush his spirit. So sometimes I accept it or I'll gently decline, or sometimes I might have a bit of a tone. But we have names for those things, which are, I don't know if you remember, we named them. If you say you're thirsty, because one time when we were dating, I had said I was thirsty and he jumped up to give me a glass of water. And I said, I could do that myself. And he's like, if you say you're thirsty, I'm going to get you some water. And we had to have a conversation about my own personal agency. I want to be able to do things that I can do. But it became our name for just understanding his deep values. So I'm not going to judge him when he offers unsolicited help because I know it's core to who he is. It's so natural for him to do that. But he's also going to try to understand if I decline it, it's because I value self-sufficiency and independence. So we work out these dilemmas, and if he's busy when I ask him for help, we have a name for that.
Sometimes are we talking about the pie?
Yes.
I'll say, can I eat my pie? Because there was a time when I had gotten her pie and I had not yet eaten my pie, and she asked me to do something to help her. And I said, "Can I eat my pie?" Which now is kind of a catchphrase. It's a
Yeah.
label.
Yeah. And it works for us. So naming the dilemmas is really helpful when you're in a relationship. And so what we find is that during the holiday stress, when we just feel like there's so much going on, there's all these, um, some people have a lot of work parties or gatherings, and then there's the different relatives, both sides getting together, all these things, and the schedules are disrupted. Again, the kids are out of school, and all those routines that can help center us are just, gone. We're having to use those names a lot more because of our stress level and trying to be there for each other without getting wrapped around the axle. So that we can try to stay connected with our values and supporting each other so we can get through it without any.
Doctor, this has been fantastic. I'd like to make sure there's enough time for Q&A. If anyone has questions, is this
Yes.
a good time to?
Yep.
Is it 1:45? Yes, sure.
Sorry, it's 9:52. I've got to let the dog out.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I meant to ask
No,
Eric
it's
to
okay.
stop. Yeah.
So does anyone have any questions, or did anything kind of strike a chord that you might want a little bit more information about?
I just
Dr. Wagner?
for sharing.
Hi, this is Shauna. One, I just wanted to say how much this resonated for me personally, and thank you for both of you for always just being so authentic. It really does resonate. And what I just kind of wanted to say really resonated with me tonight was it does. I know this time of season for us does feel chaotic and out of control, and we have extra stresses, and it's a time where it's easier to get snappier with one another. It's a time, it's a hard time. And, when you talked about control, how, we still all have control over one thing, what we say or do, that really struck a chord because, when I think about really wanting to have time, what is it that we want to do with that time? It's not go shopping. It's not those things. It's the connection that we have. And if we are cognizant of what we're saying or doing, the value of that and the impact of that. So, anyways, that really resonated, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. You
both.
summarized that point so beautifully. Yes, thank you.
And then
Hey,
you said
Doc.
you had RP. You
Yes,
have RP. I have retinitis pigmentosa too. And I just want to say thank you for your beautiful message. Like, that definitely struck a chord with me. Was very emotional, cry. I'm always a crier, and I get frustrated about judgment all the time, literally a story of my life. So I literally like loneliness and like wanting to be a part of something, and vision loss is very hard. Like I would never wish anybody to go through it. So you definitely need a support system for sure, like all the time. So thank you for sharing your beautiful story. Like, I needed that for release. And my heart is beating because it was just so energetically aligned. I needed that. So thank you for your purpose of living your truth and sharing your wisdom and teaching with us.
Thank you. Oh,
Hi, it's Adam. Again, thank you for everything. One thing that kind of hit home with me was the gift exchanging thing, because for years we've been doing that, Sherry and I, and we kind of down to the point where she says, "This is what I want," and I go online and find it, or she'll just go out and buy it, and then I'll wrap it. So.
He's a really good wrapper, though. He wraps all the gifts. I don't even wrap half my gifts. I give to him because I don't know. But the other thing that really struck for us as well, besides the gift giving, I think we really will talk about that seriously later, because it is stressful, is
Yes.
the tree.
Oh, yeah.
Your tree story. So every single year we talk about it, because every single year we've been together, which is forever and a long time, we go out and we buy a real tree. And
Lug it
we
home.
love it. We love it. Even the mess, everything about it, stringing the lights. But for me, I love it because Adam can smell it. He can't see it, but he could smell a fresh cut tree. And we've been talking every year, should we get one of those? You know, we'll get one that looks really real and it already have the lights, and we'll be able to like stop arguing while we decorate the tree and just put up the tree. And anyway, but I never want to do it because I don't want to lose the smell. But then I realized, I saw that they sell pine tree candles. And so we're gonna try it this year. We're buying an artificial tree, which just the thought of that kind of is cringy. But we're gonna buy one that looks to me as real as possible. But I'm gonna go buy like 1,000,000 pine scented candles
Oh, the
because I
Fraser.
don't want him to lose the spirit of the tree.
Yeah, but going back to the stress factor is I have to try and string the lights because I'm taller.
Right.
And so, like,
He does the lights and he does a good job, but we fight over it.
yeah, because it gets frustrating because it's
Yeah.
It's hard.
yeah,
I
but
can just hear the dilemmas and the values on all those different sides of the dilemma that are so important. And I think of Eric's story about the man with the lutefisk. He hates the lutefisk, but it helps him feel closer to his parents, so he's going to keep doing it. And I love even though the tree was stressful because of that smell of the pine, and you're both trying to support that for Adam, that's beautiful, but you're going to try something new and maybe it'll work great and be less stressful. Yay.
that's our hope.
Right. And if it isn't, we'll go back to a live tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna give it a shot.
There you go.
And by the way, Eric, I can't even tell you how many times since you last spoke that I eat my pie first.
That's great.
How
Keep
helpful.
eating your pie.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that.
helpful. Yes. All right, anybody else have any questions or comments on anything going on in your own lives that, you know, related to this?
This is Keith Kabbalah, Eric and
Yeah.
with great story. I actually have family in Minnesota, so yeah, they're in the Minneapolis area.
Oh, that's where
great.
we are.
Well, we know how to do Christmas here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, great story. Unfortunately, my family, we no longer celebrate the holidays. It's very stressful, which I agree. But my family has been divided, extremely divided. So as of last year, we no longer have gatherings with the
Oh.
immediate family. Yeah, with the immediate family. And my mom was depressed. She lives with me. And I said, Mom, we can do it one of two ways. Because we lived in several states. We live in California now, but we lived in Georgia, we lived in Texas, started out in New Jersey, in the New York area when I was a kid. But we moved around a lot. So I had to remind my mom last year that how did we do things in Georgia when we lived there? Or when I used to visit you in Georgia, because I never lived there. I was working in Texas. So I would come home for the holidays. And it was just the three of us. And we were okay. Because I'm the only child. And my dad's deceased now. And that's another story. Christmas Christmas brings back not so good memory, because that was the day when my Christmas Day 2013 was when my dad had his first stroke.
Mm.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and I was in transition. Although we moved on, it's still hard. Christmas is hard still. And so I'm glad you mentioned something about grief and grieving.
Yes. And the memories, it's like every year the holidays are there as a triggered kind of reminder for things that are painful or poignant, and or sometimes happy memories, but a lot of it is grief and loss, especially as we lose family members, or if there's suddenly divisions, or it's just not possible to get together as a family anymore. And I'm hearing so many layers, and just the complexity of the grief you've been experiencing. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And you matter, and your emotions matter.
Yeah, thanks.
Just if I may interject, I know we're running up on time here, but really appreciate you both being here. As Shauna and everyone has said, a lot of this has really resonated with all of us. You guys are so genuine, so authentic, and just really, every time you guys speak, we'd love to have you back as much as possible, because it really, really resonates, really speaks to us all, and you guys are really coming from a place of not just expertise, but empathy and knowledge, and it's just so great to hear. So my question is, if you don't have that support system and the holidays are tough for you and you are feeling loneliness, is that a situation where you should try and seek out, maybe call friends or maybe the little family that you do have, try and make contact with them to try and relieve some of that loneliness, but then that may
Yes.
bring about other things, so I'm just trying to figure out when you reach out, when you shouldn't, and sort of what's the proper way to go about getting that support system if you don't have it.
Yeah, I think any idea that resonates with a person is worth pursuing, especially around the holidays, when again, just the messages and pressures feel like this is the time that social buffering theory, we need supports. So reaching out as soon as possible, like now, because we're heading into the holiday season, of even if it's an old friend you haven't touched base with in a long time, initiate and see if they're open for some continued contact through the holidays. Asking whatever family members who might have shared history where you can share old stories, whatever is possible to just feel known, helps with loneliness, to feel like somebody knows you. And at a minimum, there's calling we also know that this holidays are a time where people with severe depression might have thoughts of suicide, and we know, please call the 988 crisis line. You will get through it. We don't want anybody doing anything, when there will be help, and people come out on the other end grateful they're still alive. So we just need people to seek the support, seek the mental health help, and stay connected with your chapter here, because I think that's a wonderful support resource as well. Yeah, I've had a fantasy that I wish I could somehow offer, just a Zoom link that could go out to everybody nationwide with FFB. If it's Christmas and you need to connect and you have nobody else, connect here, but I can't think of how the logistics would work. So, but maybe you can.
We gotta run with it. But anyways, thank you
Yeah.
for that answer. I just want to see if there's any other questions. I know we're kind of running up on time, but does anyone else have any other questions?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Hi, I'm Chris from Long Beach, California. I got on the call about 15 minutes ago. I accidentally left my phone in an Uber while going to the disabled students program at Long Beach City College earlier today. So I just got it back about 20 minutes ago. Anyways, great from what I've heard. Jocelyn invited me on the call, met her a few months ago. you guys were talking about trees, and I wanted to bring up another kind of cool one. I've used a rosemary tree a few times over the years, like when I've lived in like a studio apartment, a really small spot. But that's kind of a nicer tree that I know Sprouts out here sells around this time of year. But it's like a little, 1.5 to 2 foot tall tree that also smells great, and you can throw ornaments on there and whatnot, and it's low stress.
Rosemary grows on trees?
No,
Yeah, it's like a little like potted tree. I unfortunately killed the last one I had because I was out of town longer than intended. But yeah, you just put like a little bit of water in it. Sprouts, it's like a Whole Foods kind of store that's out west, but they sell mostly like October through December, and they're usually only like $10-15. But yeah, that's right. Yeah, people get like they're kind of like sprigs of rosemary, kind of like same thing as like that looks similar to a pine tree, but they're very small, but they smell great too. So.
That's very cool. That's great.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I think if there's nobody else, we can, I think we're turning it over to Delaney maybe to give a little blurb. But again, if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, I just have a quick little thing. First of all, thank you both so much. I'm here with Ben, my boyfriend. We both really enjoyed.
It was a very, very nice presentation. Thank you. Thank you both so much.
And also your last one in May, and
Yeah.
Ben has RP and I'm fully excited. So we really appreciate hearing
The
from
dynamic is
you
very,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think just like obviously everyone has complicated feelings around the holidays, so this has been so helpful. So thank you. And then for the rest of the group, I just wanted to make a little announcement that we're currently working on the calendar of events for 2026. So if there's any activities, maybe in person, or topics for virtual events like this one that you're interested in learning more about, or you'd like to be kind of like a focus area, we'd love to hear those ideas. So please feel free to send those ideas in the chat on the Zoom, or you can also follow up with the chapter via email, but please feel free to put any ideas you might have in the chat here. We'd love to incorporate your ideas and make sure we have more great events like this one that can provide value and where we can all learn something and feel understood. So.
Yes. Well, thank you all. It's been wonderful being a part of this, and I wish you all the best. And please don't ever forget that you do matter, your emotions matter, and I hope you receive the support you need. We all need it.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're awesome.
Thanks, folks. Have a great night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.